to a new Hints and Theories video, this time about episode number 4. My name is Julia and on this channel here I guide you through the mall shows and tell you all the hints and theories that will hopefully help you figure out who the mall is. If you do not want to miss any further Hints and Theories videos, then please subscribe. And you can of course also still check out the Hints and Theories to the last episodes just by checking out my channel. And before we dive into the tasks of episode number 4, I want to tell you one thing I recognized this week about Thomas, and that is that he kind of changed his, well, let's say behavior, I think. So he plays a bit more aggressively, and I think that fits perfectly to the little audio sequence we got to hear from the mall. So between task 1 and task 2 we got to hear that little, well, conversation between the mole and Jill, and in that one the mole tells Jill that he's having a hard time because the group's feeling is so strong. And according to that, I think it would make sense for the mole to play a bit more aggressively. Also, Connie left last week and Connie was like, yeah, I wouldn't say the bond here from Thomas, but they were pretty close and doing a lot of tasks together. So I think he kind of lost his, well, person he trusted the most, and that of course would be a good opportunity to change the strategy. And one more thing about Thomas, and that is that during the season we've had several connections to movies. Probably the most obvious one, of course, in this episode was Back to the Future. And all of those movies were movies from the 80s. And now that Lila left, Thomas is the only one left who was born in the 80s. So could be a hidden hint to Thomas. And now let's jump into task number 1. And the first thing we have to ask ourselves is, would the mole like to be left behind as Liselot and Lancelot were? And of course I think the mole would like to be part of the group who was allowed to go down in that tunnel and play the game. So let's focus on that group first, and I think in general in that task Toos and Thomas were the most suspicious ones, simply because they were the ones who were able to play like the whole game. The only two ones who were allowed to go to the second step of the game. Also Thomas was the first one to solve that, well, parkour, that light quiz they had there. And there's one more thing about Thomas and Toos working together, because something went wrong there. So in the second part of that, well, game, of that assignment, they had to fill in all the codes the candidates had on their bags. And of course in the end that failed because Ruben didn't want to share his code, which makes him a bit suspicious as well. But it was also figured out that Thomas' code was wrong as well. So they filled in the wrong code for Thomas. There are two options. Either Toos filled it in incorrectly, or Thomas changed the actual correct code Toos filled in. So it's possible that when Toos turns around to let Thomas see his own bag, his own code on his bag, that Thomas used that opportunity to change the correct code into a wrong one. It's either that or it was Toos who filled it in incorrectly in the beginning, and that of course would guarantee that both of them wouldn't be able to reach the Passfragen and the money, and at the same time it would guarantee that Liselot and Lancelot were involved in the game, because then they would be able to come down and be, let's say, the ones in the most important position. About Liselot and Lancelot, yeah, well, what should I say? I think Liselot is dominating a bit the behavior of the group when it comes to Freistellungen and Passfrage, because last week already she was so dominant in saying that she wouldn't take an exemption, a Freistellung, and Toos then went along with it, and I kind of had a feeling it was the same this week again. So she was so dominant in saying, nah, I don't take it, that Lancelot basically just went along with it. So it didn't really seem like he was trying to talk, well, against her or even considering taking it, although she won't take it. So yeah, I think she kind of influences the group in that way to not go for their own, well, advantage. That of course leads us to the question why Lieselot always is in such special positions, because it already started in episode number 1 when she was, well, in that little shooting duel against Toes about that exemption, and which then led to the fact that she was left out of episode number 1. In episode number 2 she was part of the potato peel group. Then last week in episode number 3, as I already mentioned, she was able to go into hotel room 110 and, well, had the chance to take another exemption there, which she didn't do in the end. And now in this task, again, she's in a special position close to some Passfragen. And it really is weird that it's always her in those special positions. I don't want to say that this makes her more suspicious, but it's still weird, and I'm not sure, even if she's a candidate, if the production team actually would like to always have the same person in that, well, special position, in those special positions, simply because, yeah, we would of course also like to see how other candidates react when they have the chance to go for their own advantage. One more thing that I need to add to task number 1, and that actually already happened before the actual task started, and that is that they got that newspaper, and there's something interesting on that newspaper. So on the left corner there's a QR code, and you can scan that code. I will try to show the newspaper here so that you can, well, try it out if you want to. And that QR code kinda says that it is a hint, but then again it says no hint. And now there are some people out there in the WIDM Mall and the Mall fan community trying to figure out if it is a hint in the end or not. There are some weird possibilities, like an email address, I think, with left out letters, which could lead to Thomas if I remember it correctly. So yeah, if you want to join in on that search if it is a hint or not, then feel free to do that. I just thought it would be interesting to share it with you. Then task number 2, we got to see an awesome round of bingo and a trip to the zoo, and I have to say I loved that bingo part because it was so funny. I really had so much fun watching it, but I think that the mall wouldn't like to be part of the bingo group, because honestly I don't see any way how you would be able to mall there. And even if you would try to, well, mark some of the numbers on your sheet which actually didn't appear, well, even then there were 2 other candidates watching you. So there was at least one person always watching what the person in front of the sheet with the marker did. So I really don't see how the mall would be able to mall there. If you have any idea, then please share that with me in the comments, because as I already said, I have no idea that would make actually sense. So let's look at the zoo group, and we had a boy group in there and the girl group, so to say. The boys were Ruben and Thomas, and they were actually in the good position to be able to walk around searching for the answers twice. So they were responsible for the 500 euro questions and for the questions for 1,500 euro, and the girls walked around for 1,000 euro. In the end, of course, both groups are connected, because those who weren't walking around were in the end those who gave the answer, who kind of locked in an answer and said, okay, we take A, B, C or D. But I really had the feeling that they tried to trust the group who was actually searching for the answers. And we've got to see some more behavior there, especially in the boys group. So the most, well, prominent, obvious one, I think, was that they didn't figure out that the word Börs was written incorrectly. Thomas reads it out twice, I think, and still doesn't get it. Of course, Ruben also doesn't correct him, so it makes both of them suspicious. Maybe Thomas a little bit more. And that leads us to the most exciting part of that episode. And of course, I'm talking about that special elimination. And before I dive into that, I want to ask you, if you were a candidate, would you take the chance and risk filling in your test on just one person, on just one suspect, to check if that person's the mole or not? So would you risk getting a red screen knowing that you would have the chance to, well, redo at least a part of it? Let me know that in the comments below, because I'm not so sure if I would do that, to be honest. It's still pretty risky, but if it turns out to be good, then it also could give you a lot of knowledge and information about the mole, possibly. Yeah, Layla left the game, and of course the, well, big question we have to ask ourselves is, can Comfort still be the mole? And in theory, yes, she's still part of the game, she can still be the mole. I know that there were some seasons in other countries where the mole actually got to see a red screen. I mean, this is also always very controversial if the mole should be able to see a red screen. But I know from, yeah, your comments as well that this had happened in other seasons before in other countries. So in theory, yes. But I have to say that I think Comfort's reaction when she was back and got to see her second screen and also got to see that Layla was now the one to leave, I really think her reaction was very natural, very emotional as well. So I think Comfort is a candidate. If not, then this is brilliant acting, and I mean, we have seen other moles cry before. I'm thinking about last year's WIDM season, but then again, that mole, well, is an actor for a living, so that's his job in general. And Comfort, of course, isn't an actress. And yeah, I mean, doesn't mean she can't be good at acting, but still, I think it was a very natural action, so I would cross her off of my list for the moment. Also, what's interesting about that special elimination is that all the men didn't want to help Comfort. And as a mole, of course, that's interesting, because not helping her, of course, makes the chance higher that she picks the wrong photo, and that, of course, also means playing money out of the pot. That's also the tiny reason why Comfort could probably still be the mole, because she actually played 1,000 euro out of the pot, and the mole would like to do that. And of course, for the mole, it would be easy to come back, but as I already explained, I don't think she is it anymore. But as I said, if one of the men is it, then it would be a very easy option to make sure that there's money played out of the pot. And yeah, one more thing about Thomas. I know it's a lot about him today, but yeah, it just happened like that during the week and after this episode. And that is one possible hidden hint, and if it turns out to be correct in the end, then I think it would be a really cool one. So some people on the WIDM forum figured out that in between all of those childhood photos we got to see, there was one photo showing Gilles de Coster as child, so the presentator of the program, and another photo showed someone who is working for Café de Mole, so a production team member, so to say. And both photos were part of that, well, photo group in which Thomas' photo was hidden. So maybe that's a hidden hint to Thomas being part of the team this year as the mole. I think if it turns out to be true, then that would be a really nice hidden hint. Yeah, and that already were all the hints and theories to episode number 4. I hope you enjoyed them, and as I already said a lot about Thomas this week, I'm really curious what you think about that, and we will see how he's behaving next week, or if he has to leave, then of course half of the hints this week wouldn't make sense anymore. But still, I'm as always curious if you've spotted anything that I missed out. Please share all your ideas, your hints and theories with us in the comments below. I always read them, I always try to answer them. Sometimes it's not possible due to, well, the time, but I promise I always read all of it, and I always love to hear your thoughts. If you don't want to miss any further Hints and Theories videos, then please subscribe, check out my Instagram, and I really hope to see you back next week when we are already, halfway through the season. It always happens so fast. Until then, bye!